English translation 436 Contact Sunday, 15th of October 2006. 00 pulse 8 hours.
You are in your living room this morning, Eduard. Can we talk here? Or do we wake Ava and Selena up? Or do we go to your study? Actually, I am delighted to see you here and to find you taking some time off from work. But now my greeting to you, my friend.
Be welcome and greeted, Ptaah. Yes, it is probably better if we go over there and talk in the office. It is probably possible that we will go over there together, then the night watch, Carrion, will not cross our path at this time of night.
Then let us go. I feel safer here in your workroom.
As I said before, it is better to talk here, because over there, you can always expect Eva to go look in on Selena because the child always sleeps restlessly and wakes up more often in the night. But what was it, my friend, that prevented you from coming today at 14 hours for the correction work, but only at 20 HRs?
We were busy making records of a major series of earthquakes and seaquakes that will be happening from now until the next few weeks. One off the island of Cyprus at 5.0, another off the big island Hawaii at 6.6, another off Papua New Guinea at 6.5. Then there is a quake about 450 kilometers northeast of San Francisco with a magnitude of 5, followed by 2 quakes in Italy on the 24th of October with magnitudes of 4.4 and 3.7. A further one will occur in eastern Turkey, which will have a magnitude of 5.2. Then there will be an earthquake northeast of Nice in France, with a magnitude of 3.0 on the Richter scale, after which a seaquake of magnitude 5.7 will occur on the 26th of October in connection with the volcanic activity of Etna shaking southern Italy and Sicily. However, all these quakes do not have to be considered of great importance.
You seem to have made a long-term prediction.
This is indeed the case because we are doing a small study on seaquakes and earthquakes, and they are related to a major seaquake of magnitude 8.1 that will occur on the 15th of November near the Kuril Islands, north of Japan. But this will not be associated by terrestrial geologists and other scientists with this series of quakes, although it does indeed provide the basic conditions for the major quake, because indeed all earthquakes and seaquakes on the planet are directly or indirectly related. Although this seaquake will be a strong or severe one, it will not cause a catastrophe because there will be no large displacements and upheavals on the seabed, so only a small tsunami of less than half a meter will form.
Aha, so that will be in a month's time. By the way, Etna in Sicily spits out much stronger after about 4 years.
This is indeed the case, but for the time being it is not of great importance, even if in the coming days and weeks the activity will increase. Regarding the big quake, it has to be said that because it does not occur immediately after the series of quakes, but is still about a month away, earthly geologists and volcanologists do not associate it with the previous series of quakes. Although there is a direct connection, because the conditions for the quake on the Kuril Islands are only created by the series of quakes mentioned above.
Earthly geologists unfortunately still find it very difficult to understand that all earthquakes and seaquakes on Earth are directly or indirectly related to each other, so that even a small quake has such an effect that further quakes occur elsewhere in the world. As I know from you, the earthquake's swinging waves have such an effect on the whole planet that everywhere where the appropriate conditions are given, new conditions for new earth and seaquakes arise through these swinging waves, which take hold of the whole planet, and therefore one earthquake can follow another, even if it often takes weeks or even months, until everything has built up such that the earthquake occurs. But there is still North Korea, to which you said that the atomic bomb test was a fake, but that nevertheless a riot is taking place around the world. However, atomic particles were supposedly detected in the atmosphere, so I am surprised that you said it was fake. Am I misunderstanding this? Because by fake I mean that it is faked?
What you say about the earthquake swinging waves is true, but as you say, earthly scientists do not want to understand it yet, so they are having a hard time with their research. Your understanding also corresponds to what I mentioned with fake, because the so-called atomic bomb test was not an atomic bomb, but a small test object, which among other things must also be called an object of purpose and provocation, which had less than a kiloton of explosive mass, which is ridiculously small and cannot be called an actual atomic bomb, but only a deceptive object, in which commercial explosives also played a certain role. In fact, the whole thing was calculatedly organized only to provoke the leading states in terms of nuclear weapons on the one hand, and on the other hand, to warn the USA that North Korea could strike back with nuclear weapons if they attacked the country. But that this has put the world in turmoil is an effect that has not been sufficiently taken into account, and that can cause great harm to North Korea, which will be at least through sanctions, but which will make North Korea feel reassured to announce further nuclear actions and threats.
A dangerous thing and a game of fire, but I think the US is mainly to blame for that.
In fact, the U.S., with its delusion that it has to play the role of a world police force and seize world domination, is to blame for all the evil and terrible things that are officially happening and will continue to happen in North Korea, Afghanistan, Iran, Iraq, and various other countries of the world, politically, militarily, and insurrectionally. In this regard, it should also be said that the irresponsible U.S. President George W. Bush, by means of a law to this effect, openly advocates torture as a method of interrogating prisoners, and especially political prisoners suspected of terrorism. It should also be possible in future to conduct so-called terror trials through military courts. The relevant law has already been drafted, and Bush's signature is as good as given, allowing the monstrosity to come into force and the USA to disregard all human rights even further and more cruelly. Further, it is to be reported that U.S. President Bush drives his megalomania and power madness to the point of publicly announcing that the world space belongs to the USA and, so to speak, nobody has the right to use it except the USA. Furthermore, this completely irresponsible sectarian signs a document according to which a fence of a distance well over 1,000 kilometers will be erected on the Mexican border, for which the wall of the Israelis against Palestine as well as the wall of the former GDR against West. Germany serves as a criminal model for the USA to prevent unwanted Mexican economic refugees from entering the USA. There is something good to be said in passing about the USA. However, as I explained to you in a very private way at the 428th Contact Conversation on the 10th of July this year, namely that at the beginning of November, in the elections in the U.S. House of Representatives, the irresponsible U.S. President Bush, as well as his vassals and all his Republican supporters, will suffer a heavy defeat, and the Democrats will gain the upper hand. As a result, the secret and wicked plans of the Bush administration can no longer be turned into reality, thus eliminating many factors that threaten to cause a Third World War before the end of 2006. So the prophecy in this regard which threatened this war for this year will not be fulfilled. The fact that this all-out war will not take place, however, will in fact only be due to all those who will vote Democrat in the United States, thus putting the war-mongering Republicans and their president and his vassals in their place. If this were not the case, then the Third World War would be unavoidable, which Bush would actually break off from the pile as late as November if the Republicans could win the elections. His defeat, however, will tie his hands through the Democrats and limit his murderous and criminal actions to such an extent that the prophecy will not be fulfilled. Nonetheless, There are factors threatening again in later years that could still lead to a Third World War. Whereby it is to be hoped, however, that even then, the rationality of the Earth humans will prevail, and that the right thing will be done by all those who can assert their influence. Nonetheless, there are other dangers that could have malignant global consequences, such as the fact that the irresponsible powers of Israel have drawn up secret plans for a missile and air force attack on the nuclear facilities in Iran. However, it is not yet clear for a short time what the implications of this will be. In any case, the USA is in favor of such an attack, that is for sure, because then they will not have to interfere directly and can shift the blame on Israel if something goes wrong. Furthermore, at the beginning of November, at the insistence of the U.S. government, Saddam Hussein is sentenced to death in Iraq, along with those who were his closest collaborators. The U.S.-American pressure on the court in Iraq, and with regard to the death sentence against Hussein and his allies, which the USA is trying to obtain, consists of a criminal intrigue of the U.S. government in the form that the Republicans are supposed to win the upcoming elections of the House of Representatives through the death sentence. While these events are unfolding, the Israeli army is again invading Palestine, causing a vicious massacre among the civilian population in Beit Hanun and causing great destruction in the city. These criminal Israeli machinations, however, because the crime is condemned worldwide, will be trivialized by Israel through the lie in such a wise that it is an oversight and an aiming error. The USA will do the rest, so that Israel will not be publicly reprimanded for the crime, at least by the UN, because in case of such a request, the USA will veto it. What is happening, however, will lead to the Palestinian Hamas organization also breaking the negotiated ceasefire and once again threatening and committing serious attacks on Israel. The Arab states will also revoke their financial blockade against the Hamas organization. These are the things I have to mention for the time being. I will perhaps be able to report further on my next visit, which will not be for another month, because I am busy with tasks that do not allow me to come here. So my next visit will be on the 18th of November.
Understood. Now that we have corrected and worked through the contact reports and only have to work through and correct the new ones, your visits will naturally become sparser and sporadic again.
That is true because it was actually a bit tedious to be able to keep myself available for the correction work on a regular basis. It was the same for Florina and Anjana.
Of course, I thought of that too. It is understandable that you have all kinds of things to do. Well, on the 20th of September, during a kitchen conversation, a question arose regarding your ability to telepathically control the human mind and to get information out of it. There was also talk of law and order with regard to bearing responsibility. Hear what I have worked out in relation to the kitchen conversation and tell me if I can leave it like this, and if it really corresponds to the lines of your directives in this wise.
Quote, Law and Order Penetration into Purely Private Thoughts, the 20th of September, 2006.
Question: is there a right or law that the human is born under a law of nature? For example, when he or she is born on this planet, that they have the responsibility to take care of the well-being of the planet, the animals and humans living on it. Obviously it is so, but there is also the opposite. For example, what gives extraterrestrials, who were not born on this planet, the right to enter the personal thoughts of humans in order to obtain information? And is it not possible to protect against the abuse of privacy?
Answer: it is all natural, and it is all a right and law by nature, that the human is concerned about his or her responsibility, which he or she has to bear and fulfill in relation to himself or herself, as well as in relation to the planet, the animals, the creatures, and all of nature. Without the natural creational laws, no human being can be begotten and no one can be born, just as is the case with all other forms of life of every genus and species. And that which is mentioned with regard to the intrusion by extraterrestrials into the purely private sphere, or into the purely private thoughts of earthlings, is to be explained in such a wise that a certain paragraph of the directives does not allow the Pleiadian to do so.
Question. But only recently have the Pleiadian directives been somewhat expanded in this regard.
Answer. But that has nothing to do with the fact that the purely private sphere of the earthly human might be intruded upon. It is only a matter of what is generally given with regard to factors that are connected with the truth. That is to say, whether conscious lies or the truth is told, whether there is an illusion, a delusion, a schizophrenia, a deception or an imagination, etc., things which are of a purely private nature, factors by which living together, etc., is regulated, are completely taboo, so only everything which is not of a purely private nature may be touched. No longer private in nature are all factors by which fellow humans are deceived, and a false truth is pretended to them by any circumstances, such as, for example, by conscious or unconscious lies, by delusion, schizophrenia, illusions, deception and conceit, etc.
Your answers are good and correct, for you have explained what is true.
Then I have a question again, which was raised at a kitchen meeting on the 23rd of August 2006, and which was answered by me, according to your private statement in the month of July. Can the following be said like this?
Quote, President of the USA regarding the Third World War prophesies and predictions.
Question. In a contact report, it says that Sim Yaseh once said that Ronald Reagan was connected with the first effects of a Third World War, but that, as it seems, did not happen.
Answer. Ronald Reagan has simply laid a foundation stone. Just like the other following presidents who have come after him, the worst of all so far is George Walker Bush, who has gone furthest in terms of a Third World War. As far as a Third World War is concerned, the whole thing is not something that just happens from one day to the next, but it is a long process that usually takes years or even decades. With regard to such a war, various presidents, dictators and other state powers should be mentioned, who in the course of time do their part to ensure that one day a war between two states or even a world war will break out as the result of all causes. And Ronald Reagan was the first to start laying the first bricks for a Third World War, which in terms of a prophecy was announced for the year 2006, among others. But in this regard, the world political and world military as well as the world economic situation has so far changed such that the prophetic factors are still being eliminated and the danger of a Third World War is banished at least for the year 2006, as Ptaah explained in a private conversation.
This answer is also correct, and agrees with what will happen next November and by the end of the year.
Thank you. With your permission, I would like to talk to you about some purely private things that are on my mind.
Can we do a chess game afterwards? Because I feel like it. Also, I would be grateful for some chocolate if you have some here.
It is obvious, the chess game as well as the chocolate. One moment. Here, my friend, with best regards from Marianne. She always provides me with it.
Thanks. Ah, yes. I have dearest greetings from my daughters Simya, Say, and Plaja, but also from Nera, Ikarina, and Quetzal. And what else I should do, namely to give greetings from all of them to all members of the group. I would like to send greetings to them as well. The chocolate is good, thank Marianne for that.
I will... Good, then I want to talk to you about...